You want some fun? You get it from the US,
I'll call this meeting to order. Are you ready with the recording?
Yes, we're going.
All right, would you call the roll, please?
Suzanne Souter,
Here.
Joseph Day,
Here.
James Wisman,
Here.
Anthony Santillo,
Here.
Jonathan Justice,
Here.
Laura Fontana,
Here.
and also present Michael Hoffman Esquire.
Okay. So, well, as you see, we have three things on the agenda, and we'll start with Ms. Tantillo to do our overview.
Thank you. So we had our first meeting a couple months ago. And at that point, I know I discussed bringing forward some different financial institutions who are going to present to us our options for investment and banking. This is only just the start. We'll have a couple more. I've received some other recommendations for some other firms to look into as well. But today we have with us PNC, who will present first. And then at 3, we'll have Creative Financial Solutions as well. So with that, I'll hand it off to Jeff Buckworth and Bob Edmonds.
Okay. Should I stand or not?
Whatever you're comfortable with, you can stay there, you can go to the podium, whatever you're comfortable with, and everyone has a presentation from them in their pocket.
So, my name is Jeff Buckworth, PNC. I've been with PNC. It'll be 20 years in April. I've been in banking 54 years. So I've been around a long time. Know several people on the board here. I am with PNC. I'm like the relationship manager. So I'm like point of contact, quarterback, whatever you want to call it. And I bring in my partners for expertise in certain areas. Bob Edmonston is my partner in institutional asset management, which handles municipalities and corporate investments over a certain amount, usually over $1 million. We've had met with Antonia several times. I've been dealing with the city of Newcastle only on a lending side. We have 2 open loans still. One's I think $1.5 million, 6, and then a smaller, probably a garbage truck or a boom truck or something. And another loan that recently paid off. So we have never had deposits because you walk out your door over at the administrative building and you're right next door to M&T. But when we met, we try to meet on an annual basis with our clients to go over, banking, what's happening with the municipality, what's happening, what we can bring to the table as far as recommendations. And so we've made several recommendations. What's here? Bob is going to do an overview of liquidity planning and things like that. I'll kind of summarize some of the information you have on the cash management, or to me, cash management is treasury management today. They like to keep changing the names to confuse me, I guess. But so I'm going to turn it over to Bob and have him help with the liquidity presentation overview, and we can answer questions at the end. All right.
And thanks, Jeff, and thanks to the committee. Appreciate the time and the opportunity to position PNC and our treasury and liquidity solutions. This is, I know Jeff mentioned questions toward the end, but if there's anything that does come up, this is your time to get your questions answered about your fiduciary responsibility. PNC wants to serve as your treasury partner and serve as your liquidity partner, and I think that title's educational in terms of treasury. We want to kind of delineate between the two. We want to think about treasury as money movement, as operational cash, payroll, bill pay, et cetera, and then some of the services that come around with that, fraud protection, et cetera. And you'll see the treasury proposal that we provided in the presentation that you have as there. I want you to think about liquidity solutions on the investment side. So PNC on the treasury side, that's we're offering our balance sheet to you. So we are your counterparty. I think, speaking of some financial history, we had it about 2 years ago where we had the Silicon Valley Bank failures, and some of those bank failures. And so remember, you are a creditor to PNC when you are depositing money with us. I say that because with institutional asset management, we will be a conduit to the investment marketplace. We will manage a portfolio of treasuries, government obligations. The state of Delaware allows for asset-backed securities, allows for mortgage-backed securities. We can customize an investment solution. And I want to delineate it further in terms of, again, operational money and strategic money. So any monies that are necessary to kind of run the city, we want to make sure that those are on PNC's bank balance sheet. One more thing I want to mention about PNC is that we're the 5th largest bank in the country. And I know I like to remind folks of that, especially around here. I grew up in Westchester. Jeff is in Middletown. A lot of us think of PNC as a regional bank. We are the 5th largest bank in the country. We're in all 30 major markets. So when you think about what balance sheet you want to utilize for your treasury needs, I think that's important. And then the next slide, you got it. The next slide kind of shows you how big PNC is in terms of the capabilities that we do provide. And you can kind of peruse that at your leisure. But if you'll go to page 6, we'll just jump through I'm sorry, go to page 2, and then we'll go to page 6.
Okay.
Go to page 2, and that speaks to the next page here. This speaks to the idea of a liquidity solution, or I'm sorry, an operational and liquidity solution. So go to the next page, and what I want to make sure that we get clear here is to really, again, delineate between operational and strategic cash, and we've got reserve cash in there as well. But we've got I think it's a really good continuum that shows us how to use the right tool for the right job. And what we want to do here when it comes to, especially when it comes to operating cash, as I sit on your side of the table for a couple of boards that I sit on, et cetera, I want to make sure that we're not just chasing kind of the highest rate, if you will, from an operating and reserve standpoint, that we're really making sure that that we have the highest and best use of every dollar. And so right tool for the right job. And if you look on the left-hand side, again, that's operations, that's, payroll, et cetera. On the right-hand side, which is what I want to dive into, that's more, we want those dollars that are dedicated to capital projects, or those dollars that are dedicated to rainy day funds. So as I stop there, and now you can go to page 6, sorry. I just, any questions initially that you have on your mind that you want to make sure you get answered as we think about the solutions that PNC can. Okay.
One question, just sorry, with the FDIC insurance, right? How does that work for a municipality?
So the FDIC, you want to jump on?
Yeah, go ahead.
But the FDIC insurance is going to work on where PNC is your counterparty, where you are depositing monies with PNC. So 250,000 is the max for FDIC insurance, and that's why I encourage you to look at the organization that you're working with in terms of the strength of our balance sheet, because anything above 250,000, you're really just relying on the ability of that bank to operate as a going concern. So
what if it's 500,000? What do you do?
If it's 500,000, there are there's two things. We have a solution for you in terms of the if you go here, basically next slide back. So we predicated all of this on basically having $1 million in a mix of operating account and money market deposit. And so the operating account, Laura, would be FDIC insured. The money market deposit account would be FDIC insured up to 250,000. The rest of that is swept into treasuries, and so your treasury money market, and so you would have the United States government as your counterparty there. But we can kind of slice and dice it into $250,000 increments, but that lowers the rate. So, you know, we can be customizable, but it would kind of diminish the return that you'd have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that is a concern, right? The 250 is a concern. I'm gonna.
And we do have a product that can increase the 250 for municipalities.
Okay.
So Bob deals with the, government agencies, issues and things like that. Basically, if the government fails, then you've got an issue with government agencies, but you also have an issue with insurance, because if the government's not, it's not like it's an independent insurance company. But in the past, I know that the PNC had handled the costs of the state and strength of PNC, and we're not concerned about the FDIC insurance coverage.
So we can either open up multiple accounts at 250,000, or we can do the money market deposit, where you have the US as your counterparty and you've got a higher rate. But the lower the dollar amount you put into a bank account, the lower the rate we're gonna offer, again, on the bank side.
I just wanted to let everyone know that Mr. Cashman has joined online.
Oh,
Great.
okay.
Actually, I'm sorry, that prompts me with another question. Back in the dinosaur days, sometimes repurchase agreements were used to collateralize excess size deposits. Is that no longer something that's no longer
We can collateralize deposits. Again, we can collateralize deposits. But it's and I think if you go to page 6, I think it gets back to, Jonathan, the idea of, do you want all of these monies to be considered, go to the next slide, if all of these monies to be considered operating in nature, or are you going to have some, just the monies that you need operating and reserve, and then what are you going to do with this strategic cash? So we do have the capacity to collateralize deposits. It's just, again, a risk or a return trade.
Back in the day, that was a common practice. The bank has, I think I only have one customer
It still does that.
that we do that for, based on their charter, which is DMAC, which is, you're a member of DMAC. So again, the state of Delaware was comfortable with PNC strength. But we can, like I said, with the bank failures and everything a couple of years ago, and that concern, we do have a product that can increase the FDIC insurance coverage on the treasury management side. And then on Bob's side, institutional, he's making investments with government agencies and things like that. So you're covered from that standpoint.
Okay, so there is some product, we're saying, for the treasury management side of the $1 million that
Yes.
has more than 250,000. Okay, thank you.
So appreciate it. I think the slide here really shows you kind of what it is that we want you to do first, which is delineate between operating reserve and strategic cash. And we've got the right tool for the right job in terms of what role that cash should play. If we hone in on the orange there, we hone in on the strategic cash. That's where, if you go to page 7, I want to just discuss a little bit about the way that we go about working with municipalities. Jeff mentioned DMEC, organization down in Dover, where we manage specifically to the state of Delaware's liquidity investment policy. So we can customize these portfolios. The portfolios that I'm going to show you are kind of composites. They include what we call multi-sector. So it's not just treasuries, not just government agencies, but also mortgage-backed, asset-backed securities, high quality credit, corporate credit as well. All of them are going to be short-term in nature. So we're only going to invest and purchase securities out to maybe 3 years. when the ultra short, we typically only go out about 18 months. And then as this portfolio is established and up and running, then there's cash flows that come out. It's basically a laddered kind of perspective to think about that. So every quarter you would have, 50,000, 100,000, 250,000, et cetera, maturing. And then we would either reinvest it, or Antonina would say, hey, we've got a capital project. We want to make sure that we have $250,000 to pay construction. Don't reinvest the monies that are maturing. These monies are completely liquid, however. So we can, you're dealing with mostly with treasuries. We can go out and sell them any day, any time, and they would be available the next day. The key is, will we sell at a premium or will we sell at a discount? So that's the issue. But liquidity will be there. It's just, will you get back the the market value? Again, state of Delaware's liquidity policy allows for treasury, allows for government agencies, allows for mortgage-backed, and allows for agency-backed. But we can start out with just treasuries, just government agencies, if that's how we want to kind of dip our toe in. And then if you gradually wanted to diversify across other credits, we could do that as well. So my point here is that we want to work with you, discuss your goals, define the approach, and it's a customizable way of doing this.
Okay.
Real quick, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you had just mentioned it, so an investment policy statement, do you have a template for an investment policy statement that we could incorporate?
And we can take the information right off the state of Delaware's investment policy statement and then put it onto the template that we provide. But yes, we have template investment policy statements. We have template investment policy statements for each of the portfolios that or composite portfolios that I'm going to show you. One other point of important point, one of the most important points is costs. When it comes to the dollars that you have in a strategic portfolio, PNC will again manage that portfolio. You'll have access to it online. It'll be customizable for you. You have a relationship manager that will be at Antonina's fingertips, and for that service we charge 20 basis points. We are also custodian for the assets. We charge 20 basis points up to 15 million, and then above 15 million, 15 basis points. So that's the fee schedule. Just real quick, Antonina, if you go to the next page, I just want to kind of give you some of the bona fides for PNC in terms of the assets that we manage that are similar to the mandate that we're discussing today. So if you look at the client type, most of the clients that we manage money for are public funds. 16 billion of the roughly 48 billion. And then most of the money that we manage as a fixed income manager, as a bond manager, is liquidity, is precisely what we're talking about today. So when we go to the next slide, I think this will just show you kind of what the risk curve looks like, if you will, or what the opportunity set looks like for, again, liquidity specific portfolios that we manage. And basically you have different credit opportunities as you get further out to the right. We can, the portfolios that you'll see and the returns that you'll see are the asset mix that you see here. But we especially for municipalities, our ultra short portfolio, which has a duration of about 1 year, and again, maximum maturities of about 18 months to 2 years. We manage a lot of those ultra shorts, just Treasury and government agency only. So keep that in mind as we move through this. I think page 7 does the best job of showing you what the marketplace looks like right now. I'm sorry, go to the next one. And then the next one. Not page 7. Yeah, page
10.
Page 10.
Okay.
My page numbers are different than yours.
Okay.
It's a long story. Okay. So this is what the marketplace looks like right now. When you look at that yield to maturity, third line down, YTM, And you see enhanced cash, the effective duration. So we're, you're basically lending money, for days at a time or weeks at a time, as opposed to short-term income where you're lending money for weeks at a time, months at a time. Ultra short, sometimes you're lending for a year, maybe a little longer than a year. And again, that's the whole issue with buying bonds, is you're the lender here. But you'll see the yield to maturity, and that basically gives you a sense of if rates did nothing for the next, let's say, 18 months, what would I return? What could be the expectation? And so these are coming down, obviously, with an expectation that the Fed will lower rates on Wednesday and then lower rates again in January. But one of the things that we see clients doing is getting into these portfolios now and locking in rates, for, again, whether it's 9 months, 18 months, et cetera, in this expectation that the Fed's going to take rates down. Should rates come down, there's some economic reasons for doing that. Maybe a cut or two. But I think there'll be some political reasons for why for rates to come down a little bit more than that. So we're in an environment where rates are going lower. When rates go down, bond prices go up. So not only are you locking in a higher rate of income, there's potential for price appreciation. And you'll see that in a couple of slides here. We have slide 8 and 9 talk to the bread and butter of what PNC does in terms of managing these portfolios is really the credit work that we do. So evaluating, obviously, the treasuries, that's a double A credit, and that is what it is. But when it comes to evaluating corporate credit, when it comes to evaluating mortgage-backed credit or evaluating asset-backed credits, that's what we pay our portfolio managers to do. One thing we're not going to do, and I want to be very clear about this, is we're not going to guess where interest rates are going, right? So we're not going to extend duration dramatically. We're not going to shorten duration dramatically. These portfolios are very kind of middle of the road, bread and butter type of risk management. We prefer to take risk, or we prefer to evaluate risk from a credit standpoint in terms of who we're lending money to, as opposed to guessing where interest rates are going. The payoff is really, well, and you can see page 10, page 13, we've been awarded for that, specifically with our 1 to 3 year strategy as one of the top managers of the decade. But page 11 is the payoff in terms of, if you took one of these composites off of the shelf and invested in them, you look, and this tells a story of where rates have been and the type of returns that folks have gleaned from these liquidity solutions. But if you look at the ultra short duration fixed income, look at the net number. I always look at the net number. You can see that year to year, it's September through September. You're looking at about a 4.4% return. The last September, the Fed rate was at about 4%. So a little bit of price appreciation there. Over the 3 years, where we kind of, we had the largest rate increase, the quickest rate increase that we've ever seen, from 22 to 23. So over the 3 year, investors have really, again, made the highest and best use of each dollar with a 4.9% return on their cash. Don't expect these type of returns in this environment. The beauty of fixed income, the beauty of investing in bonds, short-term bonds, is you get what you pay for. You look at what that yield to maturity is. You hold that fixed income till maturity, or you hold that security till maturity, and you get your principal back and the coupon. And that's what we're trying to do here. So what this portfolio wants to do and what PNC wants to do is ensure that the city of Newcastle, with your strategic dollars, are garnering the prevailing rates that are out there, and doing it with as little friction as possible. And I'll leave you with that idea. It's saying, hey, for the strategic dollars, that's up to the committee. What do we really want to put in these strategic buckets? But once you do that, you can kind of, set it and forget it and just know that it's available for any projects that you have, but you're garnering rates and you don't have to beat up the bank and you don't have to, call Jeff every 3 months and make sure we're getting the best rate. You're invested in what's out there in the marketplace. So I'll stop there on the bottom of the hour.
And like I said, we proactively came out, met with Antonina, and looked at what you had right now with your current banking relationship, and felt that we were recommending certain things. You didn't have a sweep, you didn't have fraud protection. Fraud protection is just out of control. There's no question that there's going to be fraud, and you have insurance on your house, so in case it burns down. A lot of companies and municipalities are like the last to go with fraud protection. It's going to happen. And the average fraud is 20,000. You've got substantial balances. You should have some fraud protection. If you want to go back to, I think it's the third page. We've made some recommendations, okay,
For the operational.
for the
This
treasury
one or the one
management
before?
side. So,
Oh, and the treasury management.
yes, treasury management. So go to the last page of the treasury management. We've made several recommendations there. Set up a sweep account. I just picked a number out of the blue, $1 million.
Page 3. This gives you a bunch of details about how money movement works within PNC and works within your organization. But the proposal is up on page
Page
3.
3.
Yeah, go back up.
Your page 3.
Okay.
Your page.
You guys are confusing me.
Yeah, no. There you go.
So 3, 4, 5, maybe. Okay, one more page. Oh, I guess it's back, 2 pages, I'm sorry. So there's like a implementation fee of $275 to set up the treasury management. And on the back of that, all of these services that we're recommending, the sweep, the fraud protection, et cetera, from a conservative standpoint. And the goal is if the city says, we like what PNC is saying, we like the service that they give and the expertise that they offer, we can follow up with Antonina and go through this and see if there is some other things that we want to do, but this would be conservative. The total cost of all that would be about 700 and was it 58? 58 a month. The sweep on $1 million would generate about $1,300. So you would cover all of your banking fees plus earn additional money. Right now, you don't have a sweep, I don't believe. At the time we first started talking, I know you didn't.
No, we didn't on the regular money market. We just created the separate account for the 4 million for the budget stabilization fund that council asked for back in July. That was just implemented through the bank in November, and that is a sweep just for that 4 million, but it won't see a lot because we're not doing a lot of movement in that account.
Right. And so what we're recommending is you keep your operating, your short-term cash, roughly $1 million. It can be a little less, a little more, depending on how comfortable you are. That's going to offset all your fees and give you the additional protection of fraud. We deal with fraud every single day at the bank. My treasury management partner, that I would say 70% of his time is dealing with fraud. You need to have protection, whether it's with PNC or your bank. PNC spends $1 billion on treasury management services, cash management services, which is exorbitant, but that's what we put our money to make sure that we have the best products out there. Then when you get to Bob's area, the excess funds, he can segregate them however you want, with other accounts, but, make sure that you're covered, with various investment options to maximize your return. And so we had proposed that when we came out. Like I said, I've been in banking a long time, born and raised in Odessa. Lived in the Poconos for 18 years, came back home. Mom still lives in Odessa, in the January house. That you go down Main Street, the last house on the right on the hill is the January house. She's had that opened off and on at Christmas in Odessa, which is this Saturday. I'm sure you're familiar with it, with how old Odessa is and how old the city of Newcastle is. I have several municipalities in addition to DMAC, which is owned by 9 member municipalities, as you're aware. So I'm very familiar, do a lot with volunteer fire companies, as Joe knows. And so handle loans, tax exempt when qualified. The large loan that we have with the city is a tax exempt rate. So I think PNC brings a lot of expertise, and that's what we do. We're recommending this setup to maximize your return on the funds that you have and make sure that you're covered and protected from a fraud standpoint. Any other questions?
I do have a few, but Antonina, just so I'm clear in my head, which amount of money we were talking about in regards to the specific
So,
dollars?
yes. Give me 1 second, let me pull up the latest report. So in terms of if we were to work with PNC, we can look at a couple of options of whether or not we want to just do investment or if we want to do everything.
Right. Okay.
So I can.
It's not the 4 million account you're talking about, it's the other monies, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We could move everything to
Okay.
PNC, or we can just do the remainder. So let me get the latest report that'll go to council.
And then, for the operating, money, right? The day-to-day payroll, billing, that isn't included in the 0.2% fee. Those dollars would or would not be included in the.
Those are not included. That's just the strategic. The operating is the,
758.
so payroll, et cetera, that would be $760 a month.
And the 20 basis points, that's an annual.
20 basis points annualized. And we can charge that on a quarterly basis.
There's no additional fees. A lot of times on like the retail consumer side, there's a lot of fees for transactions and all that. PNC doesn't have that. The total fee is 20 basis points. And a lot of times they vary them, like the Merrill Lynch's and Fidelity's and Vanguard and stuff like that. With a lot of those fees, you would have to hunt.
You're talking about my side.
Not your side.
No, your side is the 760.
Right, I'm talking about.
There's
retail.
no custody fee, there's no brokerage fee on
Right.
on the strategic side. I don't want to muddy those waters.
But from what you might be used to dealing with as far as a Merrill Lynch or Vanguard, things like that, they have those extra fees. PNC on Bob's side does not. Our fees are right here, and what we're saying is that with the sweep, how the sweep works is at the end of the day, any excess monies are swept into a money market account. And at the end of the next day, after deposits and checks are going out, if money has to come in, it's done automatically so that the city doesn't have to worry about transferring monies back and forth. And the idea is with the deposits that the city has, if you can maintain, if you maintain 500,000, then your income would be 650, which would be a little short of covering all your fees. Or if you have 650 in deposits, you're like close to a break even.
So in the month in which we don't get the fee for what are covered, right? You just take a debit from the account to
Yes.
cover the fee?
For right now, I needed to look at it because the 4 million.
Yeah,
transfer,
right, yeah.
is new. So we have, unrestricted funds, about 7 million, a little less than 7 million, and restricted a little less than 7 million. The money market retention as part of the unrestricted funds is 6,695,497.
The unrestricted was 7, the restricted was roughly 7 too,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Now, within the, so we have to determine how much in each bucket we feel we need, right? So that's a conversation. We need an investment policy statement. And then so the strategic cash, which is those little bit longer investment strategies, I'm assuming that.
Where you're investing in treasuries, et cetera.
Right,
Mhm.
right, okay. So for the ultra, just out of curiosity, what type of example do you have for like an ultra short investment? Is it all treasuries? Is it all gonna be treasuries?
As I mentioned earlier, I would be inclined to follow the state of Delaware's investment policy, which allows for treasuries, government obligations. There's some repurchase agreements which we don't really use, but asset backed and mortgage backed. That's one way to do it. I do have an organization that says, oh, well, the asset backed and mortgage backed, we'll just eschew those and we'll just do treasuries and government agencies. So, it's up to you, but I would probably be keen to, I would recommend just following the state of Delaware's liquidity investment policy statement. And it's tough to do in terms of, the treasury market is obviously so big and so liquid. And anytime you try to make a sample portfolio, a couple of days go by and there's other yields, if you will. So one way I like to think about this, and it's not exact, but if you look at the 1 year treasury and it's at like 3.6, 3.7 today, that's a good proxy. Like the 1 year treasury bill. Like that's what we're aiming for. That's our benchmark.
One more quick question about the fees, the implementation fees, that's just one time or that recurs also? That's one time.
Antonina, anything from your side or anything else from the committee?
Nothing for me at this point.
We appreciate your time. We want to work with the city. I think we can really simplify things in terms of, again, getting to that objective of the highest and best use for every dollar. And then you got to catch up on the Ken Burns documentary.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, we appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Take care. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you. Be safe. Thank you. Our next presentation will probably be here in about 10 minutes if you want to take a quick break or if you want to discuss.
So just with the 7 and 7,
Yeah.
are we talking about the unrestricted, the restricted, which?
So
The unrestricted is, so share with me.
Yes, so unrestricted is comprised of petty cash, which is not the same thing. The general fund, the payroll checking, and the money market retention, the highest of that being the money market retention. The restricted is the new budget stabilization fund, which is 4 million. And then we have all of our different grants. And the other smaller funds that we created at the budget time. So that includes the comprehensive plan fund and the special projects and grant fund. And also the other funds are the capital reserve and employee redemption fund. The grants are the MSA, municipal street aid, separation day grant, the bond bills, the police grants. So TAF grants, but mostly, no, I'm sorry. mostly, restricted funds and then some grants. So what PNC offers is full banking with them to have all of these accounts with them, and also investment. So if we want to look at using those, using those restricted funds and investing some of that, we can look at that with them.
So they have the sweep account he was speaking of, we would have to have everything then, right?
Not necessarily. We can have a sweep account for a money market retention for the general, cash
Or
flow.
operating.
Right, exactly.
So-
Sounded like he wanted $1 million though to cover the fees. That's kind of what he was saying.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you do $1 million, then you cover the fees
Yeah,
and make.
and
them,
we-
but-
In our current money market, we have almost 7 million. We have about 6.5. So
Yeah.
And what's our, I should know this, what's the annual budget?
7.5.
So you probably easily have $1 million that you want.
Absolutely.
Well, really strategically, in strategic funds, we're probably talking in the $5 million range, really roughly, right?
Yeah. And in terms of general operating,
No, just if we were taking money for like that
Oh,
investment side, the
yes.
strategic money, I was thinking we'd probably be in the $5 million range for that.
yeah. So we have the 4 million budget stabilization,
Mhm.
which would be great to invest.
Yeah,
And then I know, back in July when we talked about the capital improvement fund, I think we were talking maybe about 2.5.
okay, so it's a little bit
so-
more than five.
Yeah, and we were gonna wait till we get to the mid-year review to determine if that's too much.
Mhm.
So we can talk more about that.
What was the 2.5 million? Sorry.
Capital improvement restricted.
Oh, right, right, right.
Come on. And, I can bring M&T in, who's our current banker, to kind of go over all of their banking solutions. And one thing Jeff mentioned was that we don't have fraud protection. We do have fraud protection. We just don't have the same fraud protections that PNC offers. It's just a different package. But yes, I want you to be assured that we do have that, and we do have cyber insurance. So this, be rest assured that we're covered on that. But I do have Tony here with us and Jessica.
Nancy Robinson.
Sorry.
Jessica is our manager,
Oh, I'm
our
sorry.
business manager.
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
To go over the creative solutions presentation if you are ready for that.
You're gonna pull up, stand there.
And everyone has a copy, but if you have
Well,
a whole folder.
oh, yeah. Listen, part of this
Thank
is,
you.
you've probably been through a few of these, but part of this is compliance. We have.
Thank
Oh, I have plenty.
Thank you.
you very much.
Again, I am Tony McDonald and, this is Nancy Littleton. We're from, Creative Financial Group.
Thank you.
Hey, I'll call you back.
Yes, thank you. So anyhow, we understand you are looking at possibly to invest some of your dollars from Newcastle. So again, Antonina's kind of been in touch with us and she knows me from dealing with another municipality where I handle their funds and for close to 20 years at this point. But yeah, if you just want to go to the next slide, just to tell you a little bit about Creative, and there is a brochure on the inside. But Creative Financial was started back in 1976, so we've been, next year will be our 50th anniversary. Our broker dealer at this point in time is Mass Mutual Security, so they're the ones that do all the compliance and oversight. Although we have a lot of compliance people in our firm. Our firm, we have over 300 financial representatives. We work in teams. We have over 40 plus teams. Nancy and I are a team. Jessica, who kind of runs our team. We have a very large investment division office in New Jersey. So we cover the greater Philadelphia market, which is southeastern Pennsylvania, southern Jersey, Delaware. Personally, myself and Nancy, we're licensed in a lot of different states. Our bios are in the brochure, but we manage at this point in time, well, we have over $14 billion in assets under the Creative Financial Group. Of course, Mass Mutual is one of the biggest players in the country. So as an independent broker dealer, one of the largest. So we have a lot of compliance. We have a lot of options on what we can do with the investments, which we'll get into for just a minute. So I have over 40 years in the business, a lot of designations behind my name. I have a master's in financial planning. Nancy also has, as a financial planner, has a lot of designations. As a firm with Creative Financial, I know we're talking about investments here today, but as a large firm, because we deal in teams, we do everything from employee benefits, which I know is not the discussion today, but you'll see all that information. But, we have 2 full-time estate planning attorneys inside of our firm, which I don't think any other financial planning firm in this area and the greater Philadelphia market has. So we are a pretty big player when it comes to that part. Personally, myself, I'm actually currently president of the National Association of Insurance Advisors for here in the state of Delaware, second time around. Nancy, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
So I'm very happy to tell you that I am a resident of Newcastle and I'm pushing into the 10 years, but not quite there yet. So I'm very happy to be able to present to you today. I've been with Creative Financial, this organization, for almost 20 years. And I enjoy getting all those little initials after my name. And I find it a great deal of pleasure to be here with you today. Tony and I have worked together for a long time, and we have a lot of happy people, and we're happy to be serving them in that capacity. We both really enjoy working with people and helping them realize their goals. And sometimes people don't know what their goals are, so we kind of help them figure that out. And so that's what we do, and we enjoy doing it, and we're very happy to be here with you today.
Good transition. So just to let you know, a little PR from our standpoint, Nancy and myself are only 2 out of 5 people in the whole state of Delaware who have won this Wealth Advisory Award. Okay, so there's only 5 people in the state of Delaware, and 2 of us work together. So that little brochure, yeah, that just came out. So from our standpoint, when Nancy said, "Hey, we like to help individuals and businesses kind of, find out where they are, where they need to go." Listen, the city of Newcastle's been around a long time. All right. So our goal, which to come up with a proposal, we kind of said in dealing with the other municipalities, they normally have an investment policy. Now, I've worked with some in the past that have had none, and we've developed them over a period of time. So I am not sure I've seen anything in writing at this point where you guys really have an investment policy. So whoever is giving you a proposal, including us, it's kind of predicated based on what that particular financial team has decided to show you. So for me, since I've already dealt with municipals and continue to deal with a few municipals, first and foremost is safety of principle, but that's not the only part. So when you put together an investment strategy or a policy, it helps guide the council on what you can and can't do. And it helps guide whoever is handling those particular dollars for you. So when I put on here, what's the scope of your investment policy? What does it really contain? Is it just for a particular pool of money? Is it for all of your operating money? Does it include any retirement plans? Okay. My assumption is, because I don't really have that many details yet, is, we're looking at a pool of money that you're willing to set aside for, I assume, for a medium to long term, but I don't really know that yet. And it will make a difference on how we put together our proposals as we move forward. But we're going to show you a couple proposals as we move through. The investment objectives, again, Your investment policy should have investment objectives. Really, what are you looking to do? I mean, first and foremost, for municipals, Nancy and I are fiduciaries to our clients. All right, so we have that kind of background where if you become our clients or we become your clients, all right, we're obligated to you, not to anybody else. We've got to do the right thing for the city of Newcastle. So whatever we propose, we're fiduciaries. The city of Newcastle is a fiduciary for the money that's coming in for your taxes, et cetera. Okay, so, you know, for the pool of money that we're looking at, is it for long-term streets, sewers, improvements, or is it for a project, which I've helped some municipals in the past where, hey, listen, we know we were gonna spend $1 million on a park, okay? Or we were gonna spend a lot of money putting in a new town administration building, right? We knew we had 3 years, or we knew we had 1 year, we knew we had 5 years. So we had different pools of money set up for those particular objectives. Not sure what your objectives are at this point. I mean, at some point when you get done with us, you're gonna, I mean, maybe you can tell me now, or I'm not really sure how much information you've given out to different people, so.
Yeah, so we don't have an investment policy like we talked about, at the moment. We have just created 2, restricted funds, a budget stabilization fund and a capital improvement fund. We haven't determined how much to put into this capital improvement fund.
Okay.
But the goal is to grow what we do have to, you know.
Right. So then the question becomes is for parameters, when we normally work, whether it's a company or a municipal, it's, all right, so what's our time frame? What's our risk tolerance? Okay. And for most of the municipals I've been involved in, I don't care what pool of money we deal with, safety of principle is first and foremost. And secondarily, it's, you know, we want to make sure that we do have growth to outpace inflation, et cetera. Now, what does that really mean? So it depends on how your portfolio is allocated, right? Okay, so again, I've been involved where we had a payroll account. Well, that's going to be totally different than if I have a light and utilities account where I may have to repave roads in 10 years. I've got 10 years to play with. So different goals, different objectives. And then inside those, we will put parameters saying, hey, listen, if it's something that we don't really need 5 to 10 years out, then maybe we will put in a certain percentage of bonds. What kind of bonds? That's where we talk about diversification. Should it all be in treasuries? Should it be, you know, in corporate? Can it be, you know, A+ down to B++? That's where we as financial advisors come in, help you, you know, make those decisions. And then when is the best time to maneuver that type of portfolio? So with our firm, again, it's like I said, we have a whole investment department. So for us, depending on what our clients need, we build our own portfolios, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. All right. So we don't necessarily go in and just say, all right, we're going to do a strictly electronic, an ETF type of fund where it's very low cost, but there's very little management on the inside. So there's not a lot of oversight. It pretty much stays the same. If it's 70% bonds and 30% equities, how much movement really is there? Okay, so fortunately for us, for the towns that we've been dealing with in the past, when there was a big downturn in 08 and 09, lost no money. Okay, why? Because we were positioned correctly as far as what we had in the portfolio. I will tell you, and doing this for 20 years, just for municipals, I've only had 1 year where the portfolios went down. And it's a year that I can tell you everybody's portfolio went down. Does anybody have an idea when that was?
2008.
Well, 2008-09, most people lost money. My municipals did not because of the way we positioned the funds. 2022, right. Why 2022? Because, you know, what I'm going to show you is that we're going to be more weighted in bonds. 2022 was the first time in like 50 years where bonds went down double digits. So if you had a heavy portfolio in bonds, which is pretty much what I'm going to show you here shortly, okay? It went down. If you had a heavy portfolio in stocks, you've been down many times in the past 20 years. However, your averages outperform bonds over the long run. But again, you are going to be fiduciaries to the town's money. And I don't know if you're going to be here 20 years from now on this committee or board, et cetera. So you're putting together a plan for the long term. Okay, and that's what we're here to help, and we have the experience in order to do that. So, yeah, why don't we just go ahead and pull up one of the portfolios? That'll be next.
Let me save it.
20 years from now, I'll be 103.
There you go.
Possible.
Yeah, it's very possible. Very possible. Listen, we have a client who's 99. And she's been with us a long time, only believes in stock. All right. It's like, you know, as a fiduciary, when I deal with her kids, et cetera, it's like, this is not what I'm advising.
But you say AT&T.
Well, there's a lot of different ones.
It's got a good risk tolerance.
Which one would you like, 1.1 or?
Let's start with the 2.5. All right, so initially, the reason why I'm showing two.
1.5.
1.1.
Yeah.
Is it 2.5?
Well, the one that's, well, let's make it, but whatever one you pull up, I'll talk about.
Okay. Have I stopped sharing that?
It should be the first one.
Yeah, I'm just frozen on the.
Oh,
PowerPoint.
okay.
Sorry, give me one sec.
All right, well, the full proposals are inside. And the reason why I did that, again, compliance, because I'm only going to show you a few pages. Compliance doesn't like that, so I've given you the full proposals. And again, at some point in time, if you decide, you know, we're one of the firms that can help you, whatever I show you today probably will change a little bit depending on what the marketplace is, depending on when you decide to pull the trigger. Okay. So, yeah, if you just want to scroll down.
To page 3.
Oh, you're pulling up the whole thing, but that's okay. That's fine. So for this particular one, originally we started chatting back in February of this year when I first started sending proposals. And really, this is traditionally a more conservative type of portfolio for the 2.5. You can see as a highlight, it's 70% fixed income, 18% domestic equity, and 12% on alternatives. So again, depending on your investment statement. Now, the alternatives I have in here are basically mutual fund people that go long short, meaning they can short the market, they can go longer in the market. But again, inside a lot of municipals, they'll say there's no alternative investments. You can't invest directly in gold or silver or things of those. Okay, so we're kind of being more generic here. Yeah, if you want to scroll down a little bit. Okay, so again, when we mentioned, 18% is going to be in domestic equity for this particular proposal. Again, it's broken into several different categories. Large cap growth, again, you probably already know this, but, growth, when we talk about large cap, it's basically Fortune 500, S&P 500. You know that terminology. Growth simply means it's mostly companies that pay very few dividends. They're more interested in their stock price going up. Large cap core is a combination of stocks that do pay a decent dividend, and they have growth in their portfolio as far as the stock value. Large cap value simply means, listen, they are still very large companies. Their stock prices can go up. However, they pay a higher dividend. So this is part of that, having that investment statement about diversification. We normally put in there, you can only have a certain percentage in one particular category, and there's a range for us as financial planners where we can move in between, but the town, when you put together your investment statement, I know where I can go, okay? Here, we're kind of saying, listen, because it's the town, why do we have more weighting in large cap value? Because it pays dividends. What are we interested in the town? We are interested in income and some growth. Okay. Now you may say, Tony, we're interested totally in growth. This would not be the portfolio. We have different portfolios. This particular portfolio, we're looking to preserve as much as the capital as possible and get a fair rate of return, depending on what our needs are. Okay. And again, when it comes to the bond, you'll notice in here, at this point in time, we're more heavily weighted in intermediate bonds and short-term bonds. We have no long-term bonds in the portfolio at this point in time. Why? Because we've all been through it. The last couple of years have been great if you've been into CDs. But the previous 15 years, not so good. Okay. So the last few years, when the Fed, was raising rates, we now know we're in a lowering process. Okay. Listen, we did more in CDs in the past 2 years than I did in the previous 10 years, just because the rates are so high, and we lock a lot of those people in for a fair amount of time. You all know from your own portfolio, CD rates are coming down, money market rates are coming down, still pretty good compared to the past 12 to 15 years. But we're not going with long-term bonds because there's not a big enough difference in the dividend payout for the risk at this point in time. Typically, on this type of portfolio, we would be heavily weighted in long-term, not so much. So as advisors for the town, this is where we come in and have our quarterly meeting, or whenever the town decides that they want to have with the investment committee. We'll determine that once we decide if you're coming with us, you want to meet monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, however you want to meet. But we will be in the process of, changing our portfolio throughout the year, depending on what we think. And again, right now, we have a minimal amount in core cash. We're a little bit higher in high yield, 8%. Why? Because it's actually throwing off a fairly nice dividend at this point in time. So, and again, we have a little bit in what we call alternatives, not 12%. Again, depending on what the town comes up with, that could be zero. With the alternatives, with the hedged equities, and with the multi-strategies and alternatives, really we're allowing some particular managers to say, this might be a good place to short the market or go long on the market. That we'll give them some leverage inside there with the managers. So with us, we pick and choose. That's what our firm does. We go out and what we pick is what we consider best of breed. What is the best for large cap growth? What is the best for each one of these categories? So we're not doing a straight index fund, and a lot of index funds are not really managed, meaning they just run the index. If the market goes up, fine. If the market goes down, the index pretty much goes down the same way the market does. So in 08 and 09, you even saw like the S&P 500 go down 35%, and if you were on the Russell 2000 or something, you were down close to 50%. If you were in a straight index, but at least with a managed account, they have the chance to pull the trigger right away inside. You want to scroll down a little bit?
The next page is 11.
11, okay. Thank you.
All right. So again, I kind of mentioned this already, but this just shows you what this particular portfolio, can you scroll down just a little bit more? It'll actually, maybe, just a little bit more. So this kind of shows you, remember we mentioned 2022 was the only year. Now, this particular portfolio, again, the average rate of return on this historically has been 6.33%. But in 2024 and year to date, it's above the average. In 2023, it's above the average. Why? because 2022 was not a good year. Okay, both stocks and bonds were down. So not only did stocks have a pop the next couple of years, really nice pops, mostly from what? Technology, okay, the Magnificent Seven, all right? But also bonds have been popping back because they did take a beating. But historically on this type of performance, all right, 70, 30-ish, 70 bonds, 30, you're looking at a long-term rate of return of around 6%. Okay. And if you look at the past, 5 years, we've definitely had, 2020 was a double-digit year. You're going to have some fluctuations in these types. Okay. It's not like buying a CD, although we can buy CDs and have put CDs in these type of contracts when we have high rates. We lock them in. Okay. So this is a portfolio which is not 100% guaranteed. And I assume you're not looking for 100% guaranteed because the rates are not all that great. Better than what they used to be, but not that great. Okay. We do have some guaranteed rates for those people who want to lock in a certain amount of money for 2, 3, 4, 5 years that are still paying 5%. So, I mean, it's guaranteed. Boom. Okay. Those rates are coming down. So not sure what, when you're looking to move your money. Now, any questions on this part? Okay. So again, it's a high low. All right. Now, if you scroll back up, I will get to the point where I'll just show you some of the individual. If you want to go up to the next page. Okay. So, for instance, this right now is what we're recommending at this point in time. When I mentioned large cap growth, right now we're looking at iShares because it is an ETF. So we will use ETFs and we potentially will use mutual funds in this particular portfolio. With this type of portfolio, we're not buying individual stocks and bonds. We can do that, but most of our municipals prefer to have a broader exposure, rather than some individuals. We can do that, but we prefer to have a mix of ETFs, which is a little bit less expensive than a mutual fund, but a mutual fund is actively managed. So again, you can see, we've got iShares in there, we've got Franklin, we've got Columbia, Loma Sales, big bonds, American funds, PIMCO. Again, we've got some core cash currencies. If you scroll down to the next page, these could all change. BlackRock, JP Morgan. What happened, our back office, when I come in and say, hey, this is what I need, even though I get up 5:30, I look at the overseas markets. What did the overseas markets do when I get up in the morning to see who am I talking to today? What does it really mean? This particular proposal, if we say, hey, we're going to implement it 2 months from now, may have some of the same names or it may not. We're going to take, again, we're looking at best of breed where we put together a proposal for you. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And the other proposal, if you just want to pop it up real
When you
quick.
say, Tony, when you say best of breed, what, share with us?
Well, so from our standpoint, what we do is we have a lot of filters. Okay. So for instance, if we go in and we choose a mutual fund and we want a quality corporate bond fund. So we're going to be looking at how long has the manager been in place? Because we know if you have a manager change in a portfolio, there's a high probability it's not going to perform the way it used to. Okay. Same way, whether it's a bond fund or whether it's a stock fund, if there's been a change of top echelon and they've left somewhere else, typically for the next few years, that bond does not, or that fund does not have that particular same performance as it used to. Okay. We're going to look at the duration of the team. How long have they been in place? Now, because it makes a difference. So is there a filtering process? Now, for instance, some fund managers can have like a great performance in 2025, but depending on what they were doing, their 2026 may not be so good. Like in 2025 and 2024, listen, if in 2023, if you put most of your money in the Magnificent Seven, you outperform the benchmarks. All right, but the last couple months, you're off the benchmarks, okay? Because most of those are down over the past couple months. Not all, but most compared to the benchmarks. So we have a whole filtering system to come up with these parameters. It's just like at our firm, when I mentioned we have 300 plus financial advisors, 90% have been with us 10 plus years. We're looking at that when we look at some of these funds. So if it was the best fund from performance last year, may not be the fund that we pick, because we're looking at the other stability inside of those. And again, you've probably heard of Morningstar, okay, which again is a rating firm that takes a look at it, either a 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. Again, we utilize some of their same parameters to come up with what we're looking for inside of our portfolio. And of course, listen, we're looking at costs and efficiencies and everything else with the ETFs and with the mutual funds. That's why we have accommodations. We don't go all mutual funds. We don't go all ETFs. We choose what we think fits the best at this point in time because it's what the portfolio needs. And we're trying to keep overall costs down, but we want to do it efficiently. So that's why it's a mix for most of our proposals. Good question. Anything else?
You can keep going. We'll get
Okay. All right.
You're entering them as we go.
So just scroll down. Again, we just ran this one for $1.5 million because we originally said, hey, bring us a proposal for $2.5 million, which we did. And then we said, bring us a proposal for $4 million. And I said, wait a second. Chances are you're not going to put all $4 million, but you may into the same risk tolerance for the same amount of time. But I just wanted to show you, what a little difference would be if you went with less bonds. And in this case, it's 51% versus 70% and more equities. And then because we're going with more equities, we're now layering in some international. Now, because you're a municipal, we're not layering in the same amount of international we would probably for an individual portfolio. Okay. Year to date, who's done better? US market or most of the international markets? Well, not this year. Okay. Now, if I said the last 5 years or 10 years, the US market has outperformed the international market, especially the European one. Okay. So we've layered a little bit of international equity in, and most of that is European, because they actually are outperforming, even though we're having a great year, they're having a better year. But part of that is because it's been a dog for a while. Okay. But what have they done? So, under the current administration we have now, they said, hey, we're not giving as much to NATO. You guys need to ante up. You need to ante up your budgets. So specifically in Europe, what we're looking at is, especially Germany, which is a big player, and the UK and France, they are all starting to increase their military budgets, which is stimulating their economy because naturally they're trying to buy inside of Europe, not necessarily all from us, although some of it's coming from us, but it's really stimulated the economy. Plus, the dollar's being devalued at this point in time, which makes their currency worth more, which makes their stock market worth more. So if we continue where we're going now, even if we still have a strong economy, yes, it's not as strong as maybe it was a year or two ago. It's still pretty strong. We have high valuations in stock portfolios at this point, but there's a lot of pieces that are undervalued because it's really been the technology piece. It's really sparked it, the AI piece. It's really sparked it. So there are a lot of pieces in our economy that are underperforming, not doing as well. And maybe with interest rates coming down, it'll stimulate part of that part. Chances are, there's a higher probability this week that we'll have a Fed rate cut next week, which will make these bond values go up again. Okay. So the year for bonds is going to look solid again in 2025. And going into 2026, it'll probably still be solid. Companies, their valuations, at least in the S&P 500 for, technology, are pretty high. And a lot of people would say the market is not going to continue at the pace it's continuing now. That could be true, but I will tell you this. The average rate of return for earnings in the S&P 500 is 10%. And that is still very, very good. And the projections look like it's still going to be 10% next year. So stock valuations may not go up quite as quickly as they have over the past 3 years. But all these companies are still making good money, which makes for a solid stock market. Okay. You're primarily bonds from what I'm showing, but with the Fed cutting rates, that just makes a bond portfolio that much more efficient. Now, the question is, what kind of bonds are you in? Like years ago, we were doing a lot of inflation hedge bonds. Just because when there's a lot of inflation, those bonds pay a higher dividend. That's what they're indexed to. And then we underweighted our portfolios. Right now we have a fair weighting simply because even though inflation's coming down, it's not going to get down to the 2% they want. And personally, myself, I think if we get to around 3%, that's a number that the economy can live with. But, depending on what type of bonds you have in your portfolio, that's why we're always changing the mix. That's why you want somebody to help you manage your money. Okay. As far as, even though, anybody can say, I want 70% in bonds, but what kind of bonds? So that's why we're showing you there's all different layers of bonds that you need to have, and you're not going to keep it the same all the time. You should be changing. That's why we're heavily weighted in short term. Why? Short-term money market rates that have been really good, right? A little less this year towards the end of the year, but still really good. So we're heavily weighted in that arena. But at some point it will change. Long-term bonds will pay a big enough difference that we'll start weighting those back into the portfolios. So yeah, if you just want to scroll down, I'll just show you a little bit of difference here. Again, we already know more in equities. You can keep scrolling, please. Thank you. And again, from a standpoint in this particular portfolio, some of the names are the same, but not all of them. Okay. So again, a lot of these names are a little bit different than what you saw in the other portfolio. Why? Especially in the large cap growth area. Just simply because of the Fidelity Advisor Growth Opportunities Fund has done phenomenal. Okay. We have it at a lot of our portfolios that are looking for a little bit more growth at this point in time and have done a really good job. But anyhow, it's like I said, those pieces will change. So if you want to scroll down a little bit further, we'll just get down to where the
Page 11.
Rate of returns were. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, so those are the averages. Okay. Again, year to date, it's up 11% versus, the other portfolio, which was close to 8%. Okay. Long term, which is the key, the average on this is 8.22%. So you say 8%. 5-year average is 8%. Again, the 3-year average and the 1-year average are higher simply because the stock market's done very well coming off of 2022, and the bond market's done very well coming off of 2022. You need to key in on what's the 5 and long-term rates. Okay. I don't want to come in here and blow smoke saying, listen, you're going to get double-digit returns on this. No, you will occasionally. Okay. And once in a great while, all right, we may see a year that you're not as happy with, but we're looking for the averages, in the long run. So, again, we will tailor make the proposal once we know how long and what's your parameters for the month. How soon do we need it? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Again, this is a managed portfolio. We are actively managing this portfolio. It's just not in a model portfolio where it just sits there and nothing's happening. That's not what this is for. You can't be. You got enough money here, your fiduciary, it needs to be actively managed because we will have downturns. Okay. And even on that last one, where we showed you in 2022, the portfolio was down. You know, the average bond and the average stock was down over 15% for that particular year. Okay. That first portfolio wasn't down anywhere near close to that. Why? Because, you know, we were cutting our losses as was removed and put more in cash on the sidelines waiting for that. We were down, but we weren't down as much as the average market. So if you were just in an ETF or you were just in a cookie cutter portfolio with all ETFs and the market was down 15 or 18%, you were down 15 or 18% because they weren't buying and selling internal inside the portfolio. So anyhow, I think that kind of gives you an idea of how we would actually handle the money. But if you need help setting up parameters, I mean, I can certainly sit down with your committee to kind of give you some recommendations or samples of what I've done in the past. Any questions? I know I threw a lot at you in a short period of time, but I'm probably not the first today, so I'm probably the last, so you probably want to get out of here. But anyhow, you know, from our standpoint, Nancy and I appreciate the time that you've allowed us today.
I do have some
Yeah.
questions,
Mhm.
so sorry. How many municipalities or public service sectors are you working with?
Well, personally, two right now. The firm, yeah,
I'm not
I
worried
can
about the
get,
firm, I
yeah,
think, I'm just.
just two for me.
Somebody working with you directly, right? So are you gonna be our lead?
Yes, Nancy and I will be your lead. We have a whole investment department that, you know, we're the lead, we're the one that comes out and says, hey, based on market conditions, et cetera, this is what we're recommending based on, you know, we have a conference call with our backside investment firm all the time. What's changing in the market? How should we reposition our portfolios? Yes, Nancy and I will be your point person.
Now, you don't have discretionary over the account, so when you make decisions around making changes, how does that happen?
Well, we can have discretion. Depends on what
What if
the
we don't
town
want
wants.
that? How would the?
Well,
process
then
work?
we need to contact somebody
Right.
to make a change. Now,
Okay.
typically, and that's a good point. Typically, on these portfolios, when we put it together for the specific dollars that we're talking about, you may say, we want a conservative portfolio. Okay, or you may say, listen, I'm okay with the generic 70-30. Here's the parameters. I don't want any more than 10% in one position with one CD or with one bank or with one mutual fund or one ETF. I don't want any more than 10%. But you can give us the discretion to keep you in that parameter where we have to stay in those parameters.
Okay.
Otherwise, we need to meet. Typically, we meet with an investment committee. And, or there's a point person where we'll say, hey, we think there's some things coming up. Maybe like right now, let's just say you had some long-term bonds, you know, we would say, you know, we think maybe the Fed's going to start raising rates again. Okay. So if they're going to do that, let's change some of these bond positions.
Right.
So we can change them and still stay within the same category.
Right.
But so that's our relationship with you when we sit down the parameters. Do we need to contact somebody? If we're staying inside the parameters, we definitely have to contact somebody if we're going outside the parameters. Our broker dealer will not allow us to move you from a conservative to a moderate portfolio without consent from the people in charge. Now, on this particular platform that I'm showing, okay, we can set it up so that as long as I stay within those parameters, if I don't like what Fidelity is doing in the large cap growth, I can change it with the American Fund's Capital Growth Fund for that one sleeve.
Right.
So that most of the time that's the discretion they allow us, but I I can't move you from conservative to moderate.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so we come up with large, mid, small, blah, blah, blah. These are, you can have 10 to 20% in
Yes.
large, and then you can make the decision around the holdings within that, right? You don't have to come to us each time.
That's
But then when we're meeting once or twice a year, you would explain to you why you made those possible changes, right? Or,
Yeah.
you know,
And typically when I meet, I'll give you a market forecast and say,
Right.
here's how we're doing. This is what we've done so far. Here's what I'm looking at, maybe we have 18% in, if we're doing a conservative portfolio with 18% in equities, I think maybe we should bring it down to maybe 14% for a while, because I think there's going to be a little bit more volatility. Let's put some more in cash. Okay. Because if there is a dip, it gives us an opportunity to buy back in.
so that's a great question. So right now we're in cash. And I don't foresee that it would be, I'm asking, is it advantageous to us to go in if we think there's gonna, possibly a dip, or should we dollar cost average in over a 6-month period of time?
Here's what I would tell you. Dollar cost averaging, you can never go wrong with. If it's long-term money, it'll work its way out. Okay. It's the market timers who get burnt the most.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with dollar cost averaging. Yes, you may miss out on a short term and say, gee, but by the same token, you may avoid a dip. And let's face it, you're going to have some good quarters, some good years, and there's going to be some that you're not going to be as happy with. I know, I've been doing this a long time. Okay. I'm looking for the average based on what risk tolerance you want. And, you're going to judge us. Well, we do a lot with the benchmarks. So that's why we try to put benchmarks on everything, just to kind of give you an idea. Are we doing our job, or aren't we doing our job? So even if the portfolio goes down, how much did the average market go down? And if we went down more, there's a problem, right? So what did we do wrong? How do we correct it? Or, was it just bad judgment? So those are the type of things when we sit down, we're going to take a look at. So again, great questions.
And then, so how often, I guess, performance reports, right? Like if I called you today because we were having a finance meeting, can I get some type of reporting?
With us, yeah, actually with us, you'll have a website.
Okay.
You can call us. We will take care of it.
Uh-huh.
You will have a website that you can go directly to, and it'll give you today's performance, yesterday's performance, the last quarter, last month. You have access to that 24/7.
The account's gonna be owned by the city of Newcastle, right? That's
And will be.
ownership, right? And then you can only have certain amount of people, I think, like Antonina would have access to that, but the rest of us probably would not, right?
Courtney and I would do
Right.
that.
You-
Yeah, that's up.
Would have, yeah.
Probably
So,
up to the
it's
town, but-
Limited on who can have access
It
to
is.
that website, but let's just say she's unavailable. There are other people on your sheet that you have third party, that you could do information sharing. We could call you and say, hey, Tony. sorry.
Anybody in our team you could call, and
Okay.
they can pull those. It's an easy report for us to pull.
Right, and we would have to figure out who was allowed to have some of that,
Right.
conversations, but I think the only thing,
And you do get monthly statements, which
Right.
does show you your performance for that month and year to date.
and I mean, this is a question, outside, returns are returns, right? We can't all predict the market. If we all did, we'd all be retired. But how do you measure success beyond returns?
Well, that, again, from your standpoint, part of it is, what does your investment statement ask for?
Mhm.
So we are going to be putting our portfolio together based on your investment statement.
Okay.
And again, the investment statement is extremely important for the financial advisor to make those parameters. Okay. So for instance, one of the common pieces is, listen, we want to preserve our assets. However, we want to make sure that the growth in the portfolio outperforms inflation. Very few people put in there, we want to outperform inflation by 2% or 3%. That's okay, you can do that. But it just means a certain modeling of the portfolio. So performance is going to be a key. But from your standpoint, you're going to be looking at things of, okay, so we performed. Were we above or below the benchmark? Okay, and because you were above the benchmark, was it just good timing? Or is it something that we did in the portfolio? You're going to be happy either way. But for me, it's like, did I just get lucky? Or because there will be a time where, for instance, a few years ago, we overweighted in short term. And then interest rates went up. Initially, it was not good because midterm and long-term rates were a little bit higher, but we went short term because we thought there was going to be some volatility. Well, and then the Fed started raising rates and our short-term portfolios outperformed the mid and the short. So I knew that there was a potential that we would not look good for that quarter when we went to short-term early. We might have been a little early, but over the past 2 years, we outperformed the mid and the long-term dramatically in the short-term, in your own CDs, which, you went from getting less than 1% to like 5%. So if you were locked up in a bond that was, a midterm bond that was paying a 3% dividend, and now you can get a 5% CD, you took a hit if you had to go sell that bond where you're only getting 3%. So we're not perfect, but there are reasons why we do things.
And then last question, and I just didn't see it, or maybe it's in small print, but what is, let's just say what's your fee structure?
Okay, so again, good question. Typically, on a portfolio of this size, depending on when we meet, it'll be less than 1%. The total fees all in will be less than 1%. And again, the final fee will depend once we meet on, how often do we have to meet? What do we got to do for the town? So again, if I have to come out here every month and do a presentation, or I got to spend a lot of time, my fee will be slightly higher than if I only have to come out here quarterly. Because again, my time is worth X amount of dollars.
So is that based on the 1.5 portfolio or the 2.5? Is it any amount of money? Is it up?
Well, anything over $1 million will be less than 1. The more we get, the lower the fee goes.
And when you say less than 1%, you mean all in, even management fees of the mutual funds or the ETFs? Okay. And is there any conflicts of interest that you would have with other municipalities, having other municipalities in your?
Conflict? No. The conflict of interest may be if I ran your 401k and I'm doing this, there could be a conflict of interest, but there's no conflict of interest if I'm handling other municipalities, because you're totally supplemental.
And this might do you have other team members on a longer term basis who are joining, or,
Well, again, we have a firm of 300 people, so we have, it's Nancy and I and Jessica as kind of like a core. But again, we're running out of the Newark office where we have like 15 people, and we have the investment department that has dozen people who are just doing investments all the time. So we have, because we are professionals, we have buy-sell agreements inside our firm. So if something happens to me or Nancy, we have younger people in our firm who work with us, who are familiar with us, who will actually buy out our practice. And they will have Jessica, who's substantially younger than Nancy and I, who really does most of the work. You need a report, Jessica's going to handle it. You can check with Jessica in the past. So we have a lot of younger people in our firm, but Nancy and I are the head. So that, again, good question. But yes, we do have official buy-sell agreements inside of our firm, so that it stays inside of our firm, and you will get continuity of guidance when it comes to your portfolio. And if you don't like it, we know what's gonna happen. You're gonna move.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Did you have a question, Drew?
No.
Okay, sorry.
No,
I had one, but she covered it, so.
Okay. Good. All right. So again, we thank you for your time today.
Thank you for coming.
And then, you know, once you kind of narrow it down, you give us some more parameters, and we can be a little bit more definitive on, you know, the investments and what we're gonna charge, you know? And then, you know, and if you need help with the investment statements, give me a call. We'll work in some time and I'll give you some guidelines on what I've experienced in the bank.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right back.
It's a safe trip. You don't have to go far, but it's, you never know about this stupid ice around here.
You know, I'm going to my dentist retirement party tomorrow.
I'm not.
Yeah, good for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To all, have a lovely weekend, happy
You too.
holidays to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You wanna wait for John?
Totally two different concepts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's what I was saying earlier, like, we can look at switching banks and having a comprehensive organization to work with who's gonna
Mhm.
cover everything. We could have, you know, our regular, you know, operating accounts and then investment accounts. We can pick and choose. I think we do need to start working on the investment policy. I've drafted one based on what I've used in prior municipalities that I can share with you and we can talk about at the next meeting.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think,
That's
well,
where
I
to
think there are
start.
two different strategies
Yeah.
because the monies are very different for what we're asking for, right? So I think the first PNC is our cash, right? Like they're, you know, they're using treasuries, they're not using mutual funds and ETFs and
Right.
even in their third tier. And then this money is maybe that 3 to 5 plus, right? So I think there are different strategies, but appropriate for how we're gonna dictate the monies to be invested. I'm okay having different companies doing different things. I don't know how other people feel about it, but I don't have a problem if we use a bank like a PNC and a endowment, you know, provider, whoever that may be. And the only thing I would ask is do M&T, look, I like M&T for, I mean, but we use M&T now, right? So have we talked to them about a presentation just like PNC,
Yeah.
just so we give them the.
Yeah, so it's kind of odd because we currently work with them. So I will ask them to come.
No, it's
our-
okay, yeah, I just wasn't.
Yeah, our main contact, he was out for this past month, so he's
Okay.
back now. And I will ask him to come and present with the next round of presentations. I have talked to him over the past few months about different investment opportunities and how we could, you know, get more for, you know, bang for our buck on our accounts, what other services they could provide us and different like protections with the accounts on like the operating side. So yeah, I certainly will have them come back and talk to us about what we currently have and what we could grow to.
Right.
I talked about M&T coming in and making a presentation since they're a regular bank.
Yes, thank you.
I guess I have two questions.
Mhm.
If we move everything,
Mhm.
how disruptive is it gonna be? How much is that gonna cost?
Yeah. Good
I
question.
mean, those are one-time downsides.
Right.
But it depends on how big a downside. And in terms of splitting it, because if they have different firms have different strengths and weaknesses.
Mhm.
Does that lowers our or raises our fees probably because we don't have larger amount of money under the control of one firm. And that may or may not be a significant difference, but I think it's
Yeah.
something we need to consider.
It's possible, but you know, if we are gonna grow, our savings
Right.
in a greater investment policy, it might, or,
I mean, you're
it might
talking
be-
6.5. I don't think the first people thought we were ever gonna give them 6.5 million.
Yeah,
I think they were in the 1 to 2 range is kind
Yeah.
of how I felt. So I didn't think that they thought they were getting the whole pot anyway. 0.2 is unbelievably low, but I understand their investments were more treasury based and things, but still
Mhm.
0.2 is pretty darn good. And less than 1 is fine. He just didn't give clarity around kind of breakpoints. So, but that's what, I don't think they thought they were getting 6.5. So I felt like they thought they were getting 1 to 2 anyway, right? And like, I think this guy thought he might get 4. Like, I don't know, like, I kind of like, that's the feeling I kind of got. And I would be okay with that, right? Like, he's the cash guy, and then these are the longer term guys. I don't know, just a thought pattern.
Mhm.
And, an investment policy statement is important. And then who has, I mean, the accounts are opened up in the city, the city's name, but then you have their trustees or something. There's people associated to the accounts, right?
Right.
So people have to be comfortable that if you're associated to it, they ask for all your personal information. You have to give them, social security number, date of birth, like you're like a person, like a client on behalf of that account. And then I would say, as far as like access to the website and stuff, only you gotta limit that.
Yeah,
Not
absolutely,
everybody,
and that's
like, it's
all
like one
restricted
person.
now.
Yeah,
Right.
Well, maybe 2 because you need a backup.
a backup, yeah, right, but like not,
Not everybody.
yeah, I'm not like
Yeah.
logging in there and stuff,
Right, like, I don't think members of the finance committee, besides like
No.
Courtney and I, would have that access, and neither
Right.
would council,
Yeah, you just bring us the reports whenever we're gonna have a meeting, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But you do want to have probably like a trusted contact, like
Mhm.
where someone on the committee could call them to talk to them about the investments, not to get on the website, but
Yeah.
like we should be have access to them if we have questions, I guess, but or an investment discussion, like I don't, someone wants to talk to them before they come in about what their percentage or goods or something. So, but yeah, I don't have a problem having it separated where someone's kind of the cash bucket and someone's more the investment bucket.
Yeah, that was more of the strategy that I was used to.
Yeah.
So I like that approach. You're gonna say something?
Well, I'm sorry, a lot of this I should probably know, and I just haven't been paying enough attention. But none of this is pension funds. This is all stuff with like less than 5-year life cycle, right? Because even if we've got a sinking fund for capital, it's going to be a rolling 5-year. We don't have a capital improvement plan yet, right?
No.
We're working on that.
Correct.
Okay, and do we have a monthly or even like semi-monthly cash budget that lets us see sort of where the high and low points are? And I'm just thinking in terms of,
Our monthly reports
okay,
that we present at every council meeting.
all right.
I can share with you, the past 2 months for this fiscal.
Okay, because I'm just thinking we would want to use that to size the general fund reserve and
Yes.
the sort of the cash balances.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
We have a greater income, around tax season, and then
Yeah.
it dwindles by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the 3 buckets, you need to decide how much you want.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And I will say, since none of this is, I mean, if it were pension funds, that pension funds invest in equities, but generally, I mean, the hierarchy we teach is safety is always paramount, liquidity is second, and yield is third to those in terms of priorities. Because if you have a sinking fund, you may need to draw it down right, you may need to draw it down 2 years from now because that's when we're building the building. If we've got a lot of equities and that's a down year, for pension fund, it's fine because we're only drawing a tiny bit out every year. But if we need to pull down our sinking fund down year for equity markets, then we've got a lot of.
Yeah, no, if you were
more
to do
risk
a
on
capital project next year, it would just be in cash. We wouldn't even be in the market. So the capital plan is important for us to understand where timing of those needs. And if it is within the next year, it should just be in cash, not part of the investment, strategy. So I think that does become part of the discussion of when dollars are maybe needed on the short side, and then what really could be the longer side, the 5-year, opportunity. So I think what you're doing is going to be important for the discussion around this discussion.
Absolutely.
My understanding is we don't manage our own pension funds.
Right, we're in the same
We're in the
state.
state plan, so
State.
So we don't,
We don't have any.
much easier.
so yeah, we don't have to worry about that.
Right.
I thought that was the case, but I wanted to clarify. I'm sure.
We're in the same.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Well, and getting to Everson and all that stuff.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Oh, sorry, did you have
Well,
can I ask a completely different question?
Go ahead.
This has nothing to do with this.
Mhm.
But with the changes that took place, with the county and the real estate taxes with going into those tier, does that impact us at all?
Well,
Yes and no. So the actual bill is a 1-year bill pertaining to the school districts in the county. So that was the bill that was being litigated. What impacts the city is the constitutional question in terms of the constitutionality of split tax rates, which has been held. So that was put into the city's charter, but the city has never implemented it. So it affects the city insofar as implementing it's not going to drive the constitutional question, which has since been resolved. But the bill itself doesn't affect the city.
So the constitutional question is, yes, you can do it,
You can
and
do
that's
it.
been answered,
Yes.
but we didn't do it, or we
well,
did.
we
have
just
not
got
yet
permission
done it.
in July when
We were too late.
after the governor signed off on our charter change request, and of course, that was too late to change for this year's taxes.
Yeah, so that's the
So-
other thing I wanted to say,
Yeah.
in addition to continuing to look at the investments and look at all these different services, probably in our next meeting, I do want to start talking about,
Right.
how we would differentiate and options for that, if that's the path.
Right, yeah, I was gonna say that too.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't wanna wait until March or April to do that,
Right.
because we need to know going into the budget season. Courtney will be out March, right?
Most likely.
But you can run those reports about what percentage in prior years was commercial, what percentage was residential, and if we wanna just return to that, or how we wanna handle it, that's the big discussion.
Okay.
Right, how you want to do the classification.
Right, I mean, we have legal parameters that we have to follow, so.
And then, with that as well, with the appeals, I don't know how many of the appeals they've been getting through, but kind of how is the city doing with collection of the city taxes?
We're doing great.
Unbelievably.
Unbelievably well.
90%,
Sorry, what's that?
Yeah,
right?
already we're well over 90%.
Even
in
more,
collections.
my other
Okay,
computers
no,
are
that's
running
fine.
right now.
I was shocked actually at the last meeting when
Yeah.
they reported that.
Okay, yeah. We, Mike and I had a conversation the other day though, for those who did make an appeal and, who, their numbers may have changed, which may have reduced their tax payment to the city. We're gonna have to look at those numbers, make those adjustments, and then, that'll change the income, for this year.
But we had a limited number of people
Yeah,
of appeals in town.
yeah, was it 26 or 46?
I remember 41, but even at 41, that's
And I
pretty
thought
limited.
39, so we're all roughly in the ballpark.
Okay, okay.
Well, the
How
other
many of
good
those
news-
have been
And it depends on
solved
what,
or?
I don't know the number.
Yeah.
and it depends on what kind of properties. I mean, if it's a home or if it's a big industrial park, it's gonna
Well,
make
the other, I think
huge
the
difference.
benefit that we have this year is that we just have a big transfer at Deemer's Landing and the property adjacent to it, the Helm.
Transfer tax?
I was told that just transferred recently. I don't know.
Yeah, I
if
don't
you've
know that
seen
we've gotten it yet.
Those got
That's
sold.
what I had heard. And I heard it from a couple of different people, so I really believe that it did. We may not have received it yet, but that had to be a substantial
Oh,
amount
yeah.
of transfer.
Oh, sure.
So,
I mean, when the
Yeah.
Garrison was sold, we got a win from it.
And I'm sorry, I have one more question. When do we expect to have fiscal 25 financial report?
On Tuesday,
The
the
audit.
audit.
Oh, there you
All
go.
right.
We presented on
Ding, ding,
Tuesday.
ding, ding, ding.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
Anthony
we,
leaned on him to make him get things
Yeah.
moving earlier this year.
That's great.
yeah, so we'll have the report on Tuesday from our auditors. We'll have the resolution to hopefully approve that audit. But you'll find that it was a clean financial audit, so we're really happy to share that.
Who do we use?
With some Giordano.
I just learned recently that it's Joe Giordano's son
Yeah,
is the Giordano.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, he's really taken up,
Hmm.
the stuff up and.
So I'm gonna try to schedule for sometime in January, so that we can, continue this momentum. And move forward. If there's other priorities that you'd like to discuss outside of, the investment policy, capital, M&T and taxes, just let me know and we can
So
work that in.
I think we just need kind of a roadmap of what are the steps to get to the final answer, right? Like, we can interview people, that's great, but what, I think we all just need to know, like, so what do we want the capital, like, do we want this capital plan you have before we make the, I'm just trying to make sure, right? Because I'm just looking for the path forward. Like,
Yeah.
what's the steps to get us to the final answer?
Right. You tell me if you want the capital beforehand or not. I think that's also a conversation that we eventually need to present to council after, we have this conversation here. We need to make sure that the priorities are aligned with council. I think we need to
Really assess how much money we're talking.
exactly and look at what are the budget funds that we've already created and set aside for restricted, what we need to have on hand, month by month, year over year, and then how much we can reasonably invest and for how long. Is it going to be a year or like 5 years?
I think we need that first, because particularly if we're gonna split it based on the different strengths of the different firms, then we need to know what we're looking for to decide how to make that split.
I do feel the capital plan is important.
Okay.
Just my gut tells me that's like one of the driving driving forces here to come up with the rest of the plan.
Yeah. Okay. So we could look at that and look at,
Yeah.
the past couple of years' budgets and go from there.
Thank you.
No problem.
Whoa, are we finished?
I think so. Is there anything else?
Anything else? Their motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Really?
Okay.
We are.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Losing my mailbox.
Yeah, probably is. I think Lisa's working on the package.
It sounds so great, Suzanne.
Yeah, well,